Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. This is the France.That debate. We're looking at why Russia trumped the European Union in signing a last-minute deal with Ukraine over closer trade ties. There's a summit coming up in Vilnius this Thursday where Ukraine won't be signing with the EU. Now, this Tuesday, on a visit to Italy, and we're going to talk about it now with our panel before I talk about what's happening in Italy. Let me say hello once again to our guests. Joining us from Moscow, Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV of the European Center for a Modern Ukraine. From Moscow, Sergei MARKOV, who is the director of the Institute of Political Studies, former member of the Duma from Vladimir Putin's United Russia Party. Celestine, columnist for the International New York Times, and Florent of Sciences Po, the French Political Science Institute here in Paris. As I was saying, on a visit to Italy, Russia's president did not shy away when asked about the Ukraine deal this Tuesday. Vladimir Putin.
We're not prepared to open our market to European goods within 2 months. Therefore, I would ask all our friends in Brussels, my good friends in the European Commission, to refrain from strong words. Should we kill all the branches of our industry to please them?
Putin has gone even further in the past couple of days, Florent, saying we've heard threats from our European partners towards Ukraine up to and including promoting the holding of mass protests. This is pressure and this is blackmail. Vladimir Putin saying that effectively, by signing this deal, it would jeopardize Russia's economy. Is that a strong case?
Well, it is true that if you consider the place of Ukraine for the European Union, the Ukrainian economy is not a major client, a major customer of European goods. It's 1.5% of its export with third countries, which means that seen from Brussels, the agreement was much more political than economic. Whereas seen from, maybe that's a key difference, from Moscow, from Kiev, it was seen under more an economic prism, at least with the authorities. But even if you look at, in economic terms, the agreement seen from the European Union was like, we will sign a deep and comprehensive free trade agreement with Ukraine in order to make Ukrainian economy more competitive. And that's the rationale of signing a DCFTA. It's not for European goods in itself. It's a very small market. It's to modernize the economy of Ukraine. And
is it either or? Is it either you sign, as Sergei MARKOV was saying, sign up for the customs union with us, or have relations with the EU, or can you do both?
I think, seen from Brussels, the answer is definitely no. Seen from Moscow, it is possible, but I'm not sure how it can be technically possible. But the answer seen from Brussels is definitely no. You can do both.
Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV, ultimately, this is in the short term, this is a good deal. In the long term, what are going to be the consequences for Ukraine?
It's difficult to say what is in short time or in a long time, but I hope for positive solution in Vilnius. But if we discuss the problem with Russia, I think that we need a normal relation with Russia. We need a normal economic relation with Russia, not in situation when Russia provides official or unofficial restriction for our export. Effectively, we exist situation of Cold War on Russian television in accordance to Ukraine.
Because here we have a situation, Oleksiy, where you heard Sergei MARKOV describe the EU deal as a semi-colonial treaty, and you heard Vladimir Putin say that there was blackmail on the part of the EU. What are your thoughts on that?
we have a strong Euro orientation. We have a way to Europe, a way to association of agreement and DCFTA agreement. But I think that we need in normalization of relation with Russia, we need in probably compensation from EU countries of problem of situation with our Euro integration. We need in agreement with International Monetary Fund. But I think that we hope that we going to Europe, but not in Vilnius, probably in the first part of the next year, or probably in Vilnius and this Friday. But in general, our running is Europe.
Sergei Markov, your thoughts on that, that ultimately in the end, Ukraine is westward looking, and the president again this Tuesday saying that Ukraine will consider signing an EU pact when terms improve. How will Moscow take that?
We have,
normally, of course, Ukraine is looking for good things for Ukrainians. And look at what Oleksiy, listen to carefully what Oleksiy Plotnikov, very well-known and respected Ukrainian thinker, is talking about. We need compensation. Either good things need compensation? No. Only bad things need compensation. And this treaty is bad thing for Ukraine. It's very easily. That's why it's need compensation. And it's need compensation if you ask Prime Minister and President of Ukraine about $100 billion. Can you imagine how bad this treaty for Ukrainian economy for $100 billion? That's why we're talking that it's very not good treaty for Ukraine. It's not European integration, it's African integration, because it's exactly almost the same treatment as to Algeria, Tunisia, and some others. But for those countries, they can lose nothing because they have no possibility of another market. Ukraine has. It's very good for Ukraine. And I think if European Union will ready to help Russia, please give them the money. I just heard from the Brussels that they want Ukrainian economy will be more competitive. Why? To take jobs and possibilities and marketplaces from Germany, France, and Italy, and so on. No, I'm sorry, it's a joke. If you want them to give the money, they ask you. No, I don't think this money will go. And as a result, Ukraine never will agree on those very unprofitable, very negative treaty, which in fact, as a result, semi-colonial for very easy reason. It's not just my joke. It's a reality. Semi-colonial means that one actor has all rights, is European Union, and another actor has to follow the rules of games which he didn't take part in decision about. That's why it's semi-colonial. I'm sure that Ukraine will not sign any such agreement because Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych want to be re-elected.
I do have one sort of question, which is that again, back to what brought Ukraine around to making this decision. There was pressure from Moscow, and once again, I repeat, there was a blockade. There was a cut of exports from Ukraine, which only just reminded Ukraine how dependent it is.
Trucks were stopped at the border.
Trucks had stopped at the border. Chocolate wasn't coming in. But more important stuff than chocolate. B, I'm not sure anybody argues that just because you joined the European partnership, you can't trade with Russia. That's never been part of the deal. Thirdly, I think it's actually important to go back to the geopolitical question here, which is, Florent was saying, was in many ways what the EU was going for, was a kind of a partnership, not only on trade, but also indeed, in fact, as Markov says, on issues of modernization of the economy, rule of law in the justice system, a cleaning up of institutions which are not exactly functioning brilliantly, I would say. And I think what's really interesting, which is something that I looked at today, was a poll from Ukrainians where people who, even those who were in favor of keeping the trade with Russia, when asked whether they saw where they saw a chance for more modernized economy, more rule of law, and more political stability, those people said that those results would come with a treaty with Europe and not with Russia. So yes, you're right. Europe imposes certain limits, but I think that there are a lot of people out on the streets in Kiev tonight who appreciate who would like to see in Ukraine some of those standards enforced, which to them mean Europe, but they also mean modernity, and they also mean rule of law. And these are not small elements, and I dare say that's why people are out there.
Sergei Markov?
Yeah, it's difficult to say. Look, maybe you don't inform, but maybe you are directly lying to the auditory. A lot of European Union country ambassadors repeated many times in Kiev that economic integration of Ukraine with Russia will undermine its possibility to have the deal with European Union. They repeated this.
That's joining the
maybe
customs
hundreds of
union.
times.
That's not trade
It's
with
zero
Russia. Those
sum
are two
game.
different things. I'm sorry. I said trade with Russia can continue under the European Partnership Treaty, but no, perhaps not with the customs union. But trade and is not going to be blocked by joining, would not have been blocked by signing the partnership treaty. So that's my question. And you say I'm misinforming.
Let me answer.
Yeah.
Let me answer very clear. I already started to answer it, but I was have been interrupted. Look, for example, what happened. Skoda, very good automobile, produced in Czech Republic. According to this treaty, this Skoda can move to the Ukrainian territory. It cannot be sold freely, absolutely without custom and so on. Then it cannot be moved to the Russian territory because it has been produced in Czech Republic. But if Ukraine will add one mirror, they already can put the trademark that it's produced in Ukraine. Either we agree with this? Of course not. We will have to have new system of checking where really this product has been produced. It's exactly what we started with this chocolate and with another stuff. And we try to show what new system we will have to create. It's not because we doesn't like. Okay, if Ukrainians go ahead, but if it's European Union producers, but just with trade name of Ukraine, we will have to protect our market. It's very easily. And Ukrainians understand that it's a new system. When it will be implemented, it will create a big problem for Ukrainian consumers. But you also should add that this treaty, it's open European market only for those production of Ukraine, which Ukraine doesn't produce. Bananas, absolutely. Okay, without no quotas. But for the corn, it's only 2% quota. For the, chicken meat, only 2% quota. How is we can talk about that European market open? No, it will not open.
Right,
That's
so
why
you're
this
arguing
treaty destroy Ukrainian economy, but will not create possibilities for development for them.
All right, so you're arguing there that it's an insidious way of actually opening it to more than just a partnership, but actually to the European Union. Reaction from one of the viewers, from Craig on Twitter, saying Russia needs a reality check if it thinks it can compete with the EU economically. Florent Parmentier, that fear on the part of Russia that this is in a way of opening the border on one side and shutting it off to them. How grounded is that fear?
Well, I think that and Mr. Markov knows that better than us, I guess, but what is in mind probably in Moscow is the idea in the end that there should be some kind of cooperation between the Eurasian Union and the European Union in trade, trying to bring some cooperation in this domain and try to, for Moscow, the issue is to have a critical size in order to negotiate with the EU. And I think that without Ukraine, and even with Ukraine, it would be difficult. And You don't even know how Ukraine will behave within the Eurasian Union if one day it joins the Eurasian Union. So the basic idea here is that if Russia really is really scared with that, I would suggest to ask for being there in Vilnius and come to the table and not barking against against Ukraine.
All right, and as you've seen in this discussion so far, there's a lot of mistrust right now going around. Is it Putin's fault ultimately? No, argues Sweden's foreign minister, Carl Bildt, writing an opinion piece in the Financial Times, where he says, was it solely brutal Russian economic policy or reluctance by rent-seeking elites to accept the legal and political modernization that was part of an agreement in Ukraine with the EU? That has yet to be determined, but ultimately, it was a decision taken by President Viktor Yanukovych, and for which he will carry full responsibility. Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV, do you think that the events of the past week have heightened or lessened Mr. Yanukovych's chances of re-election?
It's a specific question, but I think that, as Mr. Yanukovych said in yesterday's speech to the nation, no alternative to building European standards in Ukraine, no any way to European integration. And I think it's the main message, and not only for now, for this year. Of course, it's for next president election in 2015. I think it's the main message for next president election, and I believe that President Yanukovych has possibility.
But do you think that the deal that's now been struck, Oleksiy, is a victory or a failure for Ukraine?
What is victory? The victory of Ukraine is continuous European integration. But now for Vilnius, for this Friday, I think it is very difficult to say is it victory or failed. I think it's more victory that follow Ukraine.
All right, and what we are seeing as well is the fault lines in Ukrainian politics themselves are slightly changing. You know, Oleksiy, when the last presidential election happened here in the West, the narrative read, you've got the pro-Western opposition, and you've got the which is Ukrainian speaking, and the pro-Moscow party of Viktor Yanukovych, which is Russian speaking. Of course, it hasn't always played out that way, though, since Yanukovych became president.
No, we don't have pro-Western or pro-Eastern president of Yanukovych. Mr. Yanukovych is pro-Ukrainian president, is president of Ukraine. But it's impossible pro-Western or pro-Eastern. But of course, he understands that the future of Ukraine and Europe, the future of Ukraine and European integration. But it's the main interest of President Yanukovych's interest of Ukraine, of population of Ukraine. Of course, it's every president of every country.
And as our correspondent said, two different demonstrations this Tuesday, one with the standard opposition parties and the other with grassroots movements. By the way, there's a new face in Ukrainian politics, which is familiar to all sports fans, reading WBC heavyweight champion Vitaly Klitschko.
I can't do anything myself. It doesn't matter how strong I am. But if I do not have your support, nothing would change.
Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV, if we believe the polls, if there was a runoff tomorrow, Klitschko would beat the incumbent in a presidential election. He's no Garry Kasparov, it seems.
It is difficult to say about future of Klitschko. It's a competitor and as participant of president elections. Why not? For our forecast, we will have about 20 participants of president election, of course. But I think that Mr. Yanukovych has all chance to be elected at the second term.
Now, this brings us back to before, obviously, there's a new presidential election. There's going to be that summit that takes place anyways in Vilnius this Thursday and Friday, that EU Eastern Partnership, when it opens in the Lithuanian capital. Now, the plan had been that there would be privileged ties with 5 former Eastern Bloc nations. There you see them. but Belarus, Moldova, Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. Only Georgia and Moldova, though, will be showing up in Vilnius to sign anything on the dotted line. And Florent Parmentier, what they're signing is not really, at this point, something very substantial yet.
Well, as for Georgia and Moldova, I think they will sign something which will be a first step. And we'll see in the case of Moldova, for instance, we will have elections in November 2014 or late 2014 in Moldova, which will be very important because the public opinion there on the political spectrum is also divided between, to put it bluntly, with oversimplification, but the Communist Party on one side is more favorable to the interest of, wants to join basically the Eurasian Union on the condition that, of course, Ukraine do it.
Otherwise, so the battle line's kind of mirroring what we're seeing over in Ukraine. Celestine Bohlen, did the European Union, was there any failure on their part in all of these negotiations with Ukraine? Did they lose track of something? Did they overestimate their chances?
I'm thinking now as we see this play out that back to what Florent was saying, that for the Europeans it was always a kind of a political move to sort of embrace these countries that are sort of floating in the middle somewhere. And I think that by not answering some of the questions, which to be honest I still don't understand, some of the things that MARKOV said were interesting. I don't, there should have been an analysis that came back that answered these fears that they were going to lose a market, or that, and I think that would have been a better strategy in the face of Russian bullying, which existed. But an argument that's saying, no. The Skoda car. I don't know what the argument is, but whatever that could have been. You can keep your Russian market. It's not as if Germany doesn't trade with Russia. It's not as if France doesn't trade with Russia. Being a member of the European Union does not exclude trade with Russia. So that's on the larger side. But there were probably details that worried people in factories in the eastern part of the country. And
Sergei Markov, let me ask you: do you think that we're heading now towards?
Can I react? Sorry.
Sure.
Can I very briefly react? You're absolutely right that all members of the European Union can trade with Russia, but without special privileges. It's exactly what be the case. Now Ukraine produces trading with on Russian market with very big privileges, which gives them free trade zone with Russia. If they will join such treaty, they'll just will lose these special privileges and will be like Germany and Ukraine without not so competitive economy as Germany and Ukraine. That's why this economy will collapse, and with collapsed economy, Viktor Yanukovych will lose its position in with its race in presidential race. So it's very easy.
Sergei Markov, let me ask you then. It's not been a good week for relations between the EU and Moscow. Are we headed for some kind of a new deep freeze between East and West?
I don't think so. Even again, I hope that this crisis will have same result as we have crisis as after the war in South Ossetia in 2008 in August. You remember that first of all it was crisis, but then European countries recognized that Mikhail Saakashvili absolutely guilty about this war, that Mikhail Saakashvili was the aggressors against Ossetians and Russian peacekeepers, and as a result, then Russian-European Union relations will move already to the very beneficial zone. Same exactly will be here. I think as a result of this crisis, European Union politicians will understand that zero-sum game on those Eastern European countries like Ukraine, it's not beneficial for European Union. That European politicians will understand that ignore Russian interests, to exclude Russia from Europe is the best strategy. And as a result, European Union politicians will be more ready to sit down on the table with Russia, as Russia and Ukraine already suggested. Let's have this triangle negotiation. Let's talk about common big Europe. And
Sergei
we will be
Markov,
successful.
don't ignore Russia. That's the lesson that we've definitely learned from all of this. We're gonna have to leave it there, unfortunately, because we're out of time. A lot more to ask you. I want to thank you for joining us from Moscow. I want to thank Oleksiy PLOTNIKOV, Florent, Celestine, BOHLEN. Thank you for being with us here for the France 24 debate.